we could go ahead and call our meeting to order, please. If I could ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence, then we'll ask Mr. Bradley to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Shall we call the roll, please?
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mrs. Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Singer-Erdley?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mrs. Tinglesame? Here. Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
We not only have a quorum, we have a full house. And we've got some special guests with us here tonight, so as quickly as we can get through the very front end of our agenda, we'll introduce our guest and have a special presentation before the council. But at this time, each of you have a copy of the minutes of our last regularly scheduled meeting of October the 10th, if you'd like to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Mayor, I make a motion for approval.
Thank you.
Second, Mayor.
Motion's been made, seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. In your council packet, you should also have received a copy of our latest check register. If every council member could please indicate if they've received that check register. Thank you. Mr. Mather, is the public sign-up sheet back there? Oh, Arlene's got it. Thank you. Okay, from public comments, first on the list tonight is our very own Miss Lori Saunders.
Hello.
Yay. I like that.
And this year, we're going to be having Christmas on December the 3rd. Our theme for the year is Home for the Holidays, so we're very excited about that. Our parade will be at 6 p.m., and then we'll have activities like we did last year downtown starting at 2, and they will go until 5. But we're actually trying to fill some time between that 5 and 6 mark. What we found out last year is that in between the parade, there were a lot of people who wanted more. So we're going to try and give them more and fill up their time so that they can stay downtown instead of having to go home or to leave and go do something else and then come back for the parade. So what we're essentially asking is that we be allowed to close down the street for the parade at about 5 o'clock. The parade will begin promptly at 6, and it'll probably take an hour to an hour and a half. If you all remember last year, we had a huge parade, a big parade, and we have had people asking us about the Christmas parade for the past month. So we're expecting an even bigger attendance for it this year and bigger participation. I do have the application that is going to the state once I have your all's approval to do that. I'm also asking for permission to close Court Square at about 11 a.m. for us to set up for the children's activities at 2 o'clock. And then the third thing, I almost forgot this one, the most important. Last year, it worked out very well when we did the carriage rides, and we started them at Planning and Zoning. And then we took South Mulberry and just closed that street at 2 o'clock so that the carriage ride could go down into South Mulberry, and then they made their route around the college. We'd like to do that again this year. What we did was we had a sign out on South Mulberry that said no through traffic, and additionally we had a sign up a little bit closer. I think it's Constitution Memorial.
Memorial used to be Giddings.
Giddings, right up in that area, that showed that there was going to be a spot where there was going to be no through traffic, and it was only the South Mulberry side, and then we had volunteers there too to make sure that no traffic went down there. It worked very well for the carriages. Actually, we've got 2 routes submitted inside the packet. One is a shorter route. That's if we get really busy like we did last year and had so many people waiting to ride on the carriages. And then we've got a longer route for if we don't have as many people wanting to be on the carriage rides. We intend to do much of the same that we did last year. We're doing the letters to Santa at the museum. We're also having storytelling by Mother Christmas, Deborah Kumar. Pictures with Santa will be after the parade and the tree lighting in the square. We plan to have our petting zoo, our official lighting of the tree, the ornament decorating. Last year, we did almost 400 ornaments with kids downtown. That's a lot of kids, so we hope to have as many or more this time. Of course, the bounce house is always a hit, so we'll have that back there too, and the carriage rides and the carolers, and we have Ernest the Encouragement Clown who will be on site. And then we're looking at some other ideas too that we might incorporate into the day. So,
What's your tree situation, Laurie? Have you identified the tree?
well, we have identified 4.
Then you have a
It
selection.
has been amazing. You know, last year we were kind of scrambling, putting the word out that we needed a tree. We didn't even put the word out, and we've had 4 people contact us and agree to let us use their tree. They're all beautiful. So what's currently happening is JR from the County Road Department is going and taking a look at each one of them. If they have electrical lines above them, or if they're too close to a house, that's not one that we particularly want to mess with if we can get one that's in the middle of the field by itself. So he's out looking at the trees, deciding which one is the easiest for us to get to, because I don't know if you remember last year, but last year's tree was huge. And it was even bigger than that, and we had to cut it off because it was so big. But it actually took participation from both the county and the city to get it up. So the county went out and cut it down, and then the city and county hauled it in, and it took an escort from the sheriff's office and the city police, because it was so large, it took both sides of the road to bring in.
We believe in city-county cooperation.
I don't know how we would have got that tree. And then it took all of them to get it up. And then we had KU, who actually saw that we were having a little bit of difficulty, so they came and brought their boom truck to help us get it up. So it really was a joint and group effort to get that tree up. And the ones that we're looking at are just as beautiful as last year. So we're going to have another great tree and tree lighting this year.
Okay. We learned last year was our first experiment with tourism actually handling our downtown Christmas event, and it turned out just to be an outstanding success. So looking forward to more of the same this year. So you need our permission to close the street, Laurie.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Any questions for Laurie about the plans for December 3rd?
Pretty exciting.
Okay. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And of course, you're all welcome to come down as little elves and help us out if you want to. We are looking for volunteers, so you're all welcome to come down and help out with the day, or
All right.
come and join us in the parade. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. And JD, I'm not sure what I was thinking when we started with public comments. That's the way we normally start our meetings, is to allow the public the first opportunity to address the council. But you and Senator Thayer, well, I was going to give you all a chance to go. I was going to give you all a chance to go ahead and go as members of the public, if you'd like. We're I think, honored to have with us tonight the Deputy Executive Director of the Kentucky League of Cities, Mr. J.D. Cheney, and our very own Senator Damon Thayer. I'll let J.D. make his remarks, but it's clear that city's statewide agenda is very robust and very important. We think it's more Kentuckians live within cities than do not live within cities. So the legislative agenda that we work on is essential to Kentucky's future. And while Senator Thayer represents some very rural areas, he also represents some very urban areas. And I think Senator Thayer has earned the an award from the Kentucky League of Cities. So JD, without further ado.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council, esteemed city attorney and city clerk. I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to come back. It's been a few years, but it hasn't been a few years since Senator Thayer has received a legislative award. It kind of deja vu again. Senator Thayer probably has received the most number of legislative awards of any legislator, at least in modern era, since we've been giving it out. He was chairman, as you know, of the Senate State and Local Government Committee for several years, which meant every piece of legislation that impacted city governments pretty much went through his committee, and his discretion whether to hear those bills, champion those bills, and pass them through was pretty important in a lot of the things we've accomplished over the past several years. Well, he was elected majority floor leader by his colleagues, which is a great accomplishment for the city of Georgetown to be represented by the floor leader of the Senate, but we didn't escape having to go to Senator Thayer for each and every bill if we wanted to hear it heard on the Senate floor. Senator Thayer not only is chairman of Senate, State, and Local Government Committee, but as majority floor leader of the Kentucky State Senate, has a lot to do with the successes that cities have had in the past several legislative sessions. This last session, we passed 16 of the agenda items that the KLC Board of Directors had put on the agenda, which is a pretty good accomplishment. But every single one of those bills had to go through Senator Thayer for him to examine it, look at it, give us a third degree, ask questions about how the legislation worked, and he's very vigilant about doing that. I'll say this as well. Don't always agree. We do most of the time, but when we don't, he's honorable enough to look you in the eye and say, not for that, here's why. And that's the kind of integrity you kind of look for in a legislator. You don't get that all the time in the city of Frankfort or in dealing with politics. Senator Thayer was responsible for the pension reform. Those of you that have been on the council for a while, in 2013, you're hearing a lot about pension reform being needed in the public pension crisis. Senator Thayer, from a CERS perspective, where your employees participate, in 2013, shepherded through Senate Bill 2, which made a tremendous difference, as you all know, in your contribution rates and a percentage of funding in CERS. We're just in a little bit of different shape. That bill was essential to a lot of the relief that we're feeling now and the stability that we have in the county employees retirement system where our employees participate. I could go on and on and on, but let me give you two examples from this session that directly came from Georgetown. One was the interlocal cooperation bill that ultimately passed. You know, you got to get a bill through the House and the Senate. And your city attorney and your chief of police here painstakingly drafted a piece of legislation related to interlocal cooperation for law enforcement. And when that bill made it over to the Senate, once we got it over to the Senate, sometimes the House turns a little bit slower than the Senate leader Thayer, and sometimes it's a little late on getting House bills over to the Senate, so it's awfully helpful to have a majority floor leader to help expedite that process. And that bill, he was integral in passing that. As well, he helped shepherd through legislation that would allow an option, no mandates, that I talked to Mayor Prather about, to allow any city in Kentucky to elect to do wards and structure those wards however they would want to do it in a nonpartisan election. We want local flexibility. If you've learned anything about the League of Cities, it's about you all making the decisions closest to the constituents and protecting your home rule and local decision-making authority. So I can think this session of no one more deserving than yet another. His wall is full of awards, but he doesn't minimize it. Every year we ask him, and he's proud and has always been gracious in accepting the award, and he displays them. And so he is a real friend of cities, not just this session, but for an entire legislative career. So, Leader Thayer, congratulations on the receipt of the 2016 Kentucky Friend of Cities Award. Mayor, I don't know what the protocol is, but if maybe Senator Thayer can make some comments, and then, not to breach any kind of protocol, rather than me ugly up a picture, you all, council, the city, because that's who he's working for, not the hired hands like me and Brianna. If you all maybe present him the award and do the picture, if you allow that.
I think council will be glad to. Senator?
Mayor, Madam Clerk, Counselor, City Council members, I come to you now not only with you being my constituents, but now since I've actually moved into the city limits a few years ago, I am your constituent. And when JD and Brianna informed me that I was going to win this award, I chose to have it presented here in my hometown, not at the League of Cities annual conference, but here in front of people who I represent and who represent me. So this is a true honor. This last session was a very good one for cities, and for me to have a chance to work with my mayor on the ward bill to give local control, local decision-making to councils across the Commonwealth about their form of governance. I was proud to do that, and I was especially proud to be able to work with Chief Bossy and Councilor Hartley on the backups bill, the bill that allows local cooperation amongst our law enforcement units. And that really was truly groundbreaking and a proud moment for me. No surprise that we have our mayor and our chief down in Frankfort, Georgetown, as the seventh largest city in Kentucky and fastest growing city in Kentucky, should be active down in our Commonwealth's capital. So, Mayor, when you come down to see me in the next session, you'll see this adjoining 7 others of these on my wall in Frankfort, along with 2 big hitter awards. So, not that anyone's keeping track, but that's 10 out of 14. Just in case you wondered. We've got some big things that are going to be happening in Georgetown in the next year that we worked together collaboratively on in Frankfort. On December 15th, our $35 million exit 127 on I-75 is scheduled to open to the public, and that will change forever the traffic pattern around Georgetown. If you've ever been on Cherry Blossom during Toyota shift change and tried to get out onto the connector road or onto Cherry Blossom, you know what I speak of. And I think this is going to be something that we're going to see have a positive effect on traffic flow and safety around this community for decades to come. Then in January, we're going to see our $13.5 million community college, Bluegrass Community Technical College Advanced Manufacturing Center, open up out at the Lanes Run Business Park. And that's something that we collectively can be so proud of. The city and the county and the state have invested in that business park. We were able to get $13.5 million in the budget 2 years ago, and that is going to affect our workforce needs positively for generations to come. And then about a year from now, knock on wood, we should have under construction the final leg of the Georgetown bypass. A year and a half ago, we finished up the penultimate leg from Western Elementary to Long Lake Pike, and now there is $18.5 million in the current biennial road plan to finish that bypass that has been the vision for this county and this city for about 30 years. So the Transportation Cabinet is in the process of buying right-of-way. That process is usually the slowest part. Once construction is underway, until we run into a utility delay that seems to always be a problem on these big projects, the construction usually goes pretty quickly. So, and that's mostly farmland out there. So 3 massive projects that will have a positive effect on this community for generations to come. So I wanted to share that news with you. And again, thanks for this award to the League of Cities. People have asked me, why Why do you spend so much time on matters relating to cities? Well, as the mayor said, over half the people of Kentucky live in cities. We are primarily a rural state, but it is true that over half of our residents live within the boundaries of a city. Also, in my district, the 17th Senate District that goes all the way up to South Covington, I represent one precinct in Covington. I represent the residents of 10 different cities. And also, my late grandfather was a small-town mayor, and before that, a council member. And I remember growing up, he was so proud under his watch as mayor of the sewer lines that were installed in the outskirts of that small town where I spent my youth a long, long time ago. And so I dedicate this award to him. It was him who instilled in me a love for public service. And so I'm honored, and I can't wait to get this back to Frankfurt and hang it on my wall. We will find room for it, JD. So I thank you all, and if you would honor me with a photo, it would be truly my pleasure. So thank you all again.
Council, join us down front. We'll do this picture
Thank you.
in Clark.
Thank you.
You done good. You done good. Yes, sir. Right here.
Thank you, sir.
I'm moving.
Thank you all.
How'd it work?
All right.
It was like 3 weeks ago that we talked about it, so. Dude.
I was at Sophie Joe's the other day, and they.
No.
No. Yes, you did.
See you coming, Tom.
I meant to call you. I did. Oh, sure. It was so crazy.
Mark, you wanna?
Poor Tom.
You do, girl.
Airdrop the Connors resolution.
You do, girl.
I'll get the,
Right on.
To a wave
Not this time.
He said we want to get it done before
okay, we'll go ahead and begin, resume our meeting.
Blitz in November.
So your airdrop,
Tom, you were the lucky person who would have been next to the podium, and now it's your turn. Please come forward, Mr.
Bye, David.
Tom Musgrave.
Take care.
I have some documents to distribute.
Good.
Thank you.
It's good to see familiar faces on the council and new faces who are albeit familiar.
Now, most of you all will remember Mr. Musgrave used to sit in the audience on a regular basis.
Yes,
we
I
miss
do
you.
remember
He got
that.
tired looking at us and
How are you
left.
doing?
Kelly, he kind of played your role out there for a long time.
I'm glad Lori's here tonight. Well, I'm glad Lori's here tonight because this will save me a trip by her office. Sorry, Mouse. My name is Tom Musgrave. I am Communications Director for the Kentucky Arts Council now. I come to you tonight to ask you to save a date on your calendar, November 30th, in Lexington, at Lexington Convention Center, our annual Creative Industry Report. Now, you might be asking, what is the creative industry? The creative industry is the collective of artists and other creative individuals in Kentucky. Polly Singer Eardley is one such person. Her her full-time day job is, she is an international milliner to the stars.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the plug.
You're welcome.
Now we know what you really do.
And you also have an example, John Hawkinsmith, just down the street. He is a member of the creative industry, also on our Arts Council board. Margie Rigney over here, a gentleman named Bruce Frank out in Stamping Ground, who he has an actual day job, but he is also an artist in his own right, a member of our Kentucky Crafted program. Those of you who have had signs made for the election have worked with a member of the creative industry to have those designed, photographs taken for them, photographs taken for ads designed. All of those folks, musicians, sculptors, painters, all those folks comprise the creative industry in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Why is this important? If you're interested in learning about how to tap into the creative industry in this community, you need to come to this summit. And I'll say right now that it's a bargain. It's $15 per person. So I would throw that out there. I'm gonna make a plug to Lori later as well for that, because tourism also can benefit from this. We have, if you're interested in learning about tapping into the local creative industry with a goal of community and economic development, you need to be at this summit. As Senator Thayer pointed out earlier, this is the 7th largest city in the state, the fastest growing county in Kentucky. I'm here not just as a member of the Arts Council, but because I'm a Georgetown resident, and you are the first city council that I have come to speak to about this, and there's a good reason, not just because I live here, but because of those two things I just mentioned. The demographics, 7th largest, fastest growing. You need to be represented at this summit, because a lot of those people moving in here may be part of the creative industry and just haven't been counted yet. We have a workshop that is tentatively titled "The Arts Need Business Needs the Arts." That's just a working title at this point. It's going to talk about how business and arts entities can work hand in hand, including a training on how to conduct a similar workshop in the community here. We'll also be presenting a report on a recent USDA grant project that we were awarded that's integrating performing and visual art into farmers markets. Right now it's a pilot program in Owsley and Ohio counties. At the end of the grant period, we're going to be producing a report that will enable communities across the state who have farmers markets to do a similar project within their own communities. And there's natural connections between artists and farmers market. They both create local products. Farmers can be clients of artists. Artists can be service providers, creating logos, jingles, packaging, any number of other services that with the overall goal of increasing customer base and sales at farmers markets. The agenda for the Creative Industry Summit is not yet final, but you can check back at our website, which I've provided some information for you in the Save the Date packet. And there's also going to be training for individual artists. So if you know of any who need any kind of business training, training about taxes, contracts, copyright law, you should encourage them to come, and we're going to be making a concerted effort to reach out to those folks as well. In addition, this is kind of interesting. There's going to be a presentation on Kentucky's video game industry presence. And if you're surprised to learn that we have one, so am I. Join me, because I never knew. But there are about 10 studios in Kentucky who are working at developing video game applications, and a smattering, well, actually several independent contractors who are working to support that industry as well. There's going to be a presentation from a gentleman who's the director of EKU's gaming, their gaming academic program. He's going to speak on the state of the gaming industry and its applications across the state and across the artistic disciplines. That's my pitch, that's my spiel. Again, it's $15. I would love to see at least one person from Georgetown City Council represented there. I'd love to see all 8 of you and the mayor represented there, and Lori as well. So, have you any questions for me?
Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Especially the description of Polly's enterprise.
I know.
Our keys and
This check is in the mail. It's got a lot of zeros.
start out with 0, didn't it?
And also under public comments, we have Samantha Wilder and Zach Barber.
Hi, I'm Samantha, and this is Zach, and we're from the Georgetown College Athletic Training Program. We are trying to do a 5K in the spring. I don't know if you'll remember, but I came over the summer to try to get some information about what we needed to do. And we've turned in our city paper and our tax form, not our tax form, our insurance.
Insurance form.
Yes. And now I just kind of wanted to know what we need to do next.
They're good with me. I need to speak with the police.
I think you would need to speak with the police department about their assistance with the 5K.
Okay.
And now that-
Motion from the council?
And a motion from the council, given that your paperwork is all now complete.
Okay.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion's been made
I'll second.
and seconded.
So what exactly is
You're good.
You think you got to dance or something?
One moment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That means the city council approves of your 5K. We have all your paperwork on file, and if you could work with the police department to make sure that what barricades need to be in place and what safety measures need to be in place. Some may be officer supplied, some may be volunteers that we work with you to help provide. But at this point, you've gotten council approval, and you're ready to work on the logistics with the police department.
awesome? Do I need to fill out any more forms for the city?
No, you need to contact Officer Allgood at the Georgetown Police Department.
There you go.
And good. If you could help them, that'd be great. Okay, you're good here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Good luck with your event. Thank you. Okay. Now, after we had such a great experience at the last council meeting, giving Mr. Wilhite an opportunity to come to the podium before the mayor's comments, you'll notice that the clerk has actually styled the agenda
go.
to reflect that change. So, Mr. Wilhite?
How lucky can he be?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have just 3 items tonight, and these were all approved at our last board meeting on October 18th. The first is approval of purchase order to Huffman Tank in the low bid amount of $29,000 for pressure washing and paint touch-up on the interior and exterior of the Johnson tank, and our budget has a line item for tank maintenance in the amount of $50,000.
Motion, Ms. Conway?
I'll second.
Second? Ms. Ridley? If there are no questions for Bob on the tank bid, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Next is approval of the low bid amount of $774,000 to Howard Engineering and Construction for the water treatment plant sodium hypochlorite bulk storage and feed building project. This project will replace our failing and obsolete bleach generation facility at the water treatment plant, and our budget had a line item in the amount of $800,000 for this project.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. If there are no questions for Bob, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and the next item actually relates to the previous one. We're asking for approval of a resolution to allow GMWSS to recover the construction costs of the sodium hypochlorite bulk storage and feed building project and a future potential revenue bond. This resolution does not obligate us to issue a revenue bond, but keeps our options open should we desire to recover the cost of this project.
think the Water Board's intention with this very substantial investment is to initially fund the $774,000, about half out of cash and half out of their line of credit. All this last resolution, number C, does is give the water company, protect the water company's flexibility if at a future date they want to recover that cash in a bond issue, they would preserve the right to be able to do that. It's not assuring that we will, but it's giving the water company the flexibility to do that. We would never start a bond issue at the amount of $774,000. The issuance cost would be far too high. We would wait until we had a very substantial project like an expansion to a wastewater plant, when there was a much greater financial need. Then if the Water Board determined it needed to recover some of this cash, it would give them the ability to do that. If there are no questions about what the purpose of that resolution is, then
A motion for approval?
motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, thank you. That's kind of a technical issue. If anybody'd like to ask a question about it, go ahead to. But it's similar to what we did, what the prior council did with the police department construction. We gave ourselves the opportunity to do that. So if there are no questions for Bob on item C, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right.
Just in time for mayor's comments.
We're leaving there.
Yeah. I know. But I've got a few mayor's comments tonight. I have a number of things that I look forward to updating the council on, but also some, and the opportunity that I want to take to talk with the council just a little bit about some of our plans, some of the city's plans, the council's plans for Ed Davis Park and Ed Davis Center, and improvements that have been discussed for some time. And as I approach this topic, I'd first like to say a big thank you to the Georgetown City Council and City Clerk. It's very impressive to me that every elected official from the city of Georgetown attended the Ed Davis Ball. All 10 elected officials made it a point to show up for the Ed Davis Ball, and extremely pleased with that. Also, I thought it was significant that joining us at the Ed Davis Ball was our Assistant Chief of Police, and I was proud to have my grandson with me as well. Also, it was my great privilege to give the keynote address to the Ed Davis Ball, and our message of working together to take care of our local community. We can't affect the national dialogue, but we certainly can affect what we do locally. And given the attention on Ed Davis Park and Ed Davis Center, and a number of questions that have come up since my remarks, I thought it would be helpful just to quickly review some of our recent progress at Ed Davis Park, and then talk about some immediate, short-term, and near-term goals for Ed Davis Park.
Good.
And some of these will be conversations that are an extension of what we've been talking about for years. Timing may be new on some of these, but in terms of recent progress, there have been some physical improvements at the park. We were pleased to be able to get the 2 basketball courts paved, and then covered in the colors of Ed Davis School. I thought it was a brilliant dash of color in the park, and I think a lot of people were proud of that. But I think there have also been improvements made in our communication concerning Ed Davis Park and some of the processes that we have in place to facilitate communication. The Parks and Rec Department are still having vision meetings on a regular, ongoing basis. In fact, I think their regular schedule is the fourth Thursday of each month. So there'll be yet another visioning meeting at the Ed Davis Center this coming Thursday. And some of those are better attended than others, but we're going to keep doing them because I think that type of communication is absolutely essential. It's also important that those monthly visioning sessions give us the opportunity to talk with one of the most valued partners with Ed Davis Center, and that's Ed Davis Incorporated.
Yep.
The community group that honors Ed Davis School and the values of Ed Davis School and protecting the community that Ed Davis School supported for so long. So we do acknowledge Ed Davis Inc. as one of our key partners in Ed Davis Center. But I mentioned some immediate goals, some short-term goals, and some near-term goals. One thing that I would like for us to begin immediately, if we can, and I've asked a couple of people specifically to be present tonight. Mr. Ronnie Sidney from the Boston neighborhood has been working with me for several months on a paving project that we think will make a big difference. And Ronnie's visited in my office. We've gone to Ed Davis Park together. We've walked it. We've looked at it. And the first area that I'd like to focus on for some very quick attention is if you come up Chambers and you take a left on West Lynn Street, going down toward Ed Davis Park, and then you take a left into the road,
Right.
Ed Davis Road that goes into the park. As soon as you turn onto that entrance road, to your right is a large gravel parking area that's kind of circular in nature.
Yeah.
It's filled with gravel. The grass has grown through it in a big part of the area. It doesn't look as good as it could. And we think that a couple of things could be accomplished by paving this area. Number one, gravel is just a bunch of loose rocks. And let's face it, what kids like to do with loose rocks. I know when I was a kid what we did. And this gravel area is right next to a playground. I think we can have a better area for the park if we can pave this. Something I've discussed with Mr. Sidney and others. I've confirmed it with the police department, and we've talked about it in the police committee level. There's also an unfortunate reality that some who use this area at different times might be using it for the wrong reason. And it's in all of our best interest to make sure that the park is as clean and inviting as it can be. If one of our law enforcement officers drives up on a group that might be down there in the gravel area, either drinking or other things, they could easily drop drugs from their pocket into a gravel lot, and they're not visible. If this lot is paved and an officer comes up, I told Mr. Sidney and I've told others, and I never dreamed that that would be a reason to need to pave an area, but I believe that's a real issue. So, Andrew, we are looking at
I'm gonna go back to the.
This is the ground level view. If you've just turned into Ed Davis Park, this is the gravel lot that we're talking about. We would like to, there are two entrances. We'd like to gravel the two entrances, or excuse me, pave the two entrances and be left with a long oblong of grass in the front, which we thought would be a beautiful place for a sign that welcomes you to Ed Davis Park. It's a pride issue.
Yep.
This is the Google Earth view. You can see if you have,
I couldn't get it to zoom in any further, I apologize, but it's
close.
outlined in white there.
yeah, it's outlined in white. If you come from the right-hand side of the picture, and then we turn on West Mary Lynn, and then you turn left into Ed Davis Park, you can see outlined in white the area that we would like to improve. Last week, I had Mark Reed from Hamilton and Hinkle out there and walk the property with me. He has measured it, and he is developing an estimate. Two issues here. There's the cost, which we don't think will be substantial. There will clearly be a cost involved, but we don't think it's going to be a huge cost. Probably the bigger question is timing, because you heard the report about the new exchange being open on December the 15th. They are working 7 days a week on that exchange. So what Mr. Reed told me is that he thought it would be appropriate that they want to make progress this year, but we recognize that we may not get the whole thing done this year. But Mark suggested that we consider getting the base coat put down this fall, the more coarse coat. Let it winter, then we can run snow plows over it where you can't on gravel.
Right.
And then in the spring, when the blacktop plant opens, put the final coat on it and do the professional striping. So when we talk about this being an immediate goal, it's something that I will bring you the estimates just as quickly as they're ready. And we'd like to think that if Stacy and I can figure out a way to bring that to you in a method of payment from our budget, then we could start the project, even if we had to do the coarse coat in this year's budget and do the finish coat in the next year's budget. But we see that being an immediate from now into spring to be able to make that improvement. And I'd like to thank Mr. Sidney for bringing that to our attention. It's handy when you get out walking the park, then you go look at the porta potty, and then you look at other things. And we have taken those steps. I'd recommend everybody go out and park your car and go over to the porta potty. Don't go in the porta potty. Just open the door and look. And
Okay,
yes, sir.
can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Two questions now that you mentioned the porta potty. What's the lighting situation? You know, I know Kentucky Utilities will oftentimes come in and provide, you know, I know it's been a topic of this council at a lot of intersections, but if there's, obviously there's an issue there and it's an area in which children play. What about maybe getting a couple of street lights provided by Kentucky Utilities? Obviously, we paid the monthly fee, but.
The monthly fee.
Yeah, but they provide the street light itself. Would that help the overall situation?
The expectation is yes. I think when Bronny and I went out and looked, we don't have signs indicating, you know, we don't have signs that say no drug use. We don't have those signs in a lot of places, but we may want to specifically signage, and we think lighting would be a key addition too, David. I think that's a reasonable question.
Easier to see that way.
And if they do, you know, underground lighting, for example, or whatever the case may be, that may need to be done or trenched before the blacktop. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Not the only reason, but, and then the other question, I guess, are the porta pots, are those are those Parks and Rec responsibilities, or are those our responsibilities?
It's, Parks and Recreation manages the Ed Davis Center, and it's one porta potty.
Yeah.
Apparently, the company that handles the porta potty assures us that it's being it's being emptied every Wednesday. Occasionally, and I've checked, at all of our other parks, they merely empty the porta potty that's there. But this particular porta potty occasionally needs to be changed out.
Yeah.
It needs to be taken back to the shop and
Yeah.
hosed out and cleaned and a new one brought.
Right.
But, and that actually gets me to the next step
Okay,
here.
well,
But you had another question.
Well, it was related to the porta pot. I was gonna say we could contact the company that provides that service and ask them to bring us a new porta pot if it's in bad shape, and
Well,
maybe
Well,
do
you
a
also could build a-
twice a week
Change
pickup.
it twice a week.
Yeah,
And
especially during the summer months.
Yeah.
And I even suggested to Mr. Maynard, who manages the center, that when we finished our conversation, I encouraged him to call the company and let them know that he and I had been out inspecting that porta potty, and it did not meet our expectations. And what could they do to give us better service? But David, that leads to the next idea that I'd like to talk with council about. The shot that Andrew has shown you right now is the concession building, which sits in between the main basketball court and the Ed Davis Center. The concession stand is greatly used during summer months. The porta potty right now, David, sits right behind that concession stand, right behind the concession stand, right at the end of the paved area. It's kind of tucked back in there. Not a very attractive place, but that's where it sits. It is clear, we've all visited Ed Davis Park, and we've all had conversations about this concession building and whether or not it has bathrooms in it and how it needs bathrooms in it. Now, from looking at the building, and I asked for some pictures to be taken, this is on the back side of the concession building, standing probably right in front of the door of the porta potty. And it is clear that when you go out there, you can see where, when the building was built, 2 doors were anticipated. It was blocked up and with 2 doorways, and then the 2 doorways were blocked up separately. So you could knock out those blocks and have the doors open. So it's clear from the external of the building that bathrooms were anticipated for this structure.
We've talked about that before, and,
When the structure was put up.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was great foresight to anticipate this use. We
Now
now
it's time to do it.
now we need to finish the deal.
You're not.
Now if we shift the picture, we'll go to the inside of the building, and
It says knockout slab. It's instructions.
knock-
Oh, okay.
So
They're already telling us what to do, right?
knockouts.
The writing's on the wall.
The
There you go,
writing
do
is kind of
so
on the wall.
they actually put in, the point of the knockout slab is they poured a very thin slab,
So
but
you can-
underneath it, they've already got
So you get
the
your
roughed in. It's already roughed in underneath that
Well,
slab.
that needs to be
And just
done
make the
then.
connection.
So the knockout slab, yeah, exactly. A thin layer was poured. It was anticipated that this
Real
would
thin
happen.
wall.
That was my next question. That's
Then-
good.
Then if you go one step further, you can see that on the inside of the building, the electric even anticipated there being 2 rooms in there. There are 2 separate electric switches that go to 2 separate light fixtures
There you go.
that could easily be in 2 separate rooms, a men's room and a ladies' room. This building was anticipated to have bathrooms. It's roughed in for that purpose. So
Being like that, Mayor, that expense shouldn't be near as bad as you think it is, since you've already got your whole section for your both bathrooms. You knocked the wall out, put your wall in, and the plumbing's already roughed in, you said?
we
Well, even if it's not,
Even if it's not,
you've
we'll
got,
find
you've got
out.
sewer over there.
We'll find what's under
Right.
there. I've already asked, I met last week with Bob Wilhite, because we've heard various rumors. You know, well, they couldn't run water to the concession stand because somebody said you couldn't run it off of the center of town building.
Why not?
Well, that's what I said, you
That's
know.
I mean, it's a community building,
So
run
I-
by the city.
So I started asking questions. Let's get to the truth of some
Right.
things. And Bob showed me some drawings earlier this evening that water is close to the building on two different sides of this
Right.
building. Even if we can't come off of the Ed Davis Center, city water lines are very close on two sides of the building. Getting water to the building will not be a problem.
Mayor, will that affect the blacktopping that we're gonna do immediately?
No.
Not in that section.
Not over there.
Cool.
For where we take the sewer line to, and again, we'll want to see what's roughed in underground. But Bob showed me where there's a sewer line if we go toward Chambers, or we can go in the other direction. If we go toward Chambers, we need to make sure we didn't interrupt the main basketball court.
Right.
If we go in the other direction, it's just a question of distance and which one can be done the cheapest.
Right.
But we've confirmed that sewer is available with a little effort, water's available with almost no effort, and the building's been roughed in. We think it's a necessary improvement for the park. On big days, on big community celebration days,
That's when you really.
you still might have to have a couple of porta potties.
To be brought in for that case.
But then they're brought in for the event, and they don't
They're
sit
taken
there for
out.
weeks at a
Taken out.
time. I've asked for Sherry and others to put together some prices on what some of this work would cost. There will be limitations with this facility. It's not a cure-all. First off, we've talked a lot about the hours you would leave it open. And we think that it would be smart to leave the bathroom open the hours that the park is open. When the park is closed, there's no need for the facilities to be open.
Right.
And either our Parks and Recreation staff at the Ed Davis Center or police assistants or something is going to have to help us lock it at night,
Open it up.
open it up first thing in the morning. The other issue that we'll face as a cost consideration is there is no heat in the building right now. There's no AC or heat. It gets to be a pretty warm place during the summer league. We just have to acknowledge that limitation. And as it got close to freezing season, we might have to winterize the system, lock it down until springtime, we get the system going again. Eventually, let's heat the building.
Right.
But we can start at a reasonable level and get this done. And not only does the park need it, but I think that for the next step that we'd really like to take with Ed Davis Center, these bathrooms are going to be absolutely essential to our plan.
Right.
So we're seeing this as a short-term goal. And by short-term, I mean between now and springtime, summertime. Ideally, by the time the summer league starts next year, there ought to be bathrooms in this park. And I think previous councils have done the start of the work. We just need to finish it up. Other thing that Ed Maynard and I have talked about, so many ways that at very little expense, the park can be made brighter.
Right.
As we walked around and looked around, a handful of old rusted trash barrels are not good enough. Parks and Rec already has the new barrels ordered. That's the good news, they were already ordered. But what we've talked about is, let's paint those barrels some bright color, and then have a kids' day or a community day and let the kids decorate the trash barrels.
We could stick one recycle barrel out there.
A recycle barrel, let's teach
Give us some
recycling.
Drinks, and things they could put in, teach the kids.
Nice, we look at the, we look besides the concession stand, we look at that little scorers table on the second basketball court. It's just weathered wood right now.
Fix that.
Turn kids loose with red paint and blue paint and yellow paint. Brighten it up. There are so many things that we think we can do to generate interest and make it bright and make it work. And then, one thing Andrew saw that we'll just have to fix immediately, the scoreboard for the main court looks a little tedious, and we'd like to get that down before it falls on somebody, and go fix it back in a better format.
Right now, they have to open that window and lean out and put their scoreboard on that stand, and then bring it back in when they're done, because it's not weatherproof.
All right. Fix it.
So, I mean, folks have made do. But I think we can do a little better with very little investment,
Absolutely.
very little investment.
Tom, David mentioned about lights and that coming in, that new section. We need to look, see how much brighter, if we need lights throughout that park a little more. Because the more lights you got late in the evening at night, the less people you're gonna have parking down in that one area.
And a lot easier it will be when the police are driving by, they're gonna be able to see better.
Right, so I think we need to look and see how we can brighten that up when it gets evening. Cause I know they play ball, what, 10, 11 o'clock at night?
Yep.
And the more lights we can put over there, the better off that park and the community's gonna be. Because, if I was doing something, I'm not gonna sit out in the middle of the real bright light to do it. I'm gonna find somewhere else to go, so.
Yeah.
This sounds like a good plan, Mayor.
There's a lot of problems.
The big goal that I'd,
You right?
Yeah, I'm not
you know,
gonna do anything like that.
we talked
I
about
said if.
immediate,
He's thinking about that.
we talked about immediate things we can
If
do
that's-
pretty quickly, and we've talked about some short-term things we can do, and I think the bathroom fits into that. I think the long-term goal that I'd like to talk about just a little bit is we had an incredibly special place for children that was at the center of town.
Right.
And that's been something the council has struggled with for a long time because our building got damaged. It wasn't anybody's fault that the building got damaged, but it did get damaged, and it displaced several important programs, but the one that stands out the most is the Checkpoint after-school program. We have got so many latchkey kids that simply don't have parental supervision when they get out of school. That was why the the Checkpoint after-school program was originally developed. That was Ruby Harris's dream about helping latchkey children. And ladies and gentlemen, we still have latchkey children. That hasn't gone away. The Checkpoint program was begun because of children at risk, and we still have children at risk. We need safe places where kids can grow up and where parents can be confident about where the kids are. Part of the beauty of what Ruby Harris developed was school buses that would actually bring students from school to the Checkpoint program. And then they were in a safe location, and what Ruby's formula was real simple. You have a snack, do your homework, and you can play all you want.
Right.
But we're gonna feed you something, and we're gonna make sure you've done your schoolwork, and then we're gonna protect you. And I think we still need that. I was real fortunate to be the mayor when we bought the building on Oregon Street from Wilbur Jenkins. It used to be Georgetown Cable Products. And when he moved his factory, the city bought it with the idea of putting a youth center in a part of town where children don't have to get in a car to get there, where they can walk to get there. That was one of the elements of the center of town that was so important. And we didn't close the building and we didn't close the programming, but we did preside over the building's demolition.
Yeah.
And I think that creates, that's been on my mind ever since we tore it down. And when I think back about what Ruby accomplished, it wasn't the structure that mattered. There was nothing special about the building on Oregon Street. It's just a big wide open space, and we built a little stage and a pool table and a couple of ping pong tables. And so it wasn't the structure. The magic was in the programming. And the magic is in what Ruby Harris did and how this worked for a community. And I think that's what we'd like to replicate. I think that's what we'd like to see again. And be able to assess the need, develop the right kind of programming, find out all the legal requirements and the regulatory requirements that dictate amount of space, safety considerations, fire considerations, all the things that drive a comprehensive and thorough conversation about those things, and move toward something like the Checkpoint After School program, and do this at Ed Davis Center. Now, Ed Maynard's been working on some of this. Some of these studies have been going on for a while. The dream to have the Checkpoint program revived and relocated to a place like Ed Davis Center where children can walk to it has been discussed for a long time. I mean, over 2.5 years ago, I sat in Bias's and Barbara's living room and we talked about this exact project. The idea's been around for a while. Things you learn when you do your homework. Like one thing Ed's already learned is if the center is used for an after-school program, then it has to be closed for other uses while the children are there. Means we've got to have bathrooms in the concession building, because otherwise we're going to stop people from using the bathrooms in the building. So even as we look at the concession stand, we're building a foundation for what we'd like to do down the road. It is a Parks and Recreation program, but we believe that as early as next spring or next summer, we might have answers about an after-school program in Ed Davis Center. If we are successful in reinstituting a Checkpoint after-school program, we anticipate that it will grow. We think the need is going to be substantial. And it's just not going to be Boston neighborhood kids. The beauty, if we do this right, it's going to be kids from all neighborhoods that have a latchkey situation on their hands and need a place to go. We prove this concept, we get a better handle on the need, then we begin to evaluate expanding the Ed Davis Center with physical expansions. Those are extremely expensive, slightly longer term goals. But I do think we can work diligently on getting an after-school program reinstated, learning all of the regulatory and legal hurdles, learning how we scale it to match what is going to be a growing need. And it may take us a year or 2 years to figure out how to do this. I don't think we rush blindly in and build something and then try and figure out how to use it. I think we work with the professionals, we meet a need, we try and figure out the size of the need, and then we'll know how to scale an improvement. And we'll build what we need and not what we're guessing at. So, just my thoughts about recent discussions about Ed Davis Park, Ed Davis Center, our good working relationship with Ed Davis Inc., and things that finally now we should be about doing. In terms of the larger expansion of the building, I made myself a note. It's too urgent not to be considered soon, but it's too important to be done too quickly. So we begin with the larger goal in mind. But I think we have immediate projects. We have projects that can spill over into the spring. And I think we have projects that can give birth this summer to a fledgling after-school program that perhaps we can grow as we can grow the facility.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I really like everything that you're saying. I think it's definitely a need. And I'm wondering, since we have a grant writer here, if she might could do some grant research about community projects and see if there might be any funding out there, just to throw out there. Sometimes there are. You don't know. It depends on how you word things sometimes as to how you can receive grants. Just a thought while we're going through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that everything that we've talked about so far builds upon itself. There are no wasted steps. There's benefit to doing the things well, but they also build toward a greater whole. Yes, sir. Would you?
You all of you know me, I'm Brian Stone. I just want to make some suggestions. When I came before you about the basketball court, Park and Recreation already said they had about, 19 or 9, whatever it was, amount of money it cost to do that. The mayor and the council was able to do that free for one of your contractors. That money should still be in the Park and Recreation. So I'm thinking that some of that money should come for those bathroom facilities out of their budget. So I just want to make that a suggestion. Also, I know some people who can write grants. If it becomes an educational center, it could very well be a grant for education with computers and all that kind of stuff. When I was with IBM, we donated a lot of computers out there. So it's possible to make that an educational center with the help of outside financing, so that the city and Park and Recreation would have to blunt all the cost. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Bass. The other thing that I want to make real clear is that these are very broad ideas about how to move forward. These aren't set plans. We need to engage our partners. We need to engage Ed Davis Inc. We need to engage the neighborhood. We want to gather input. I'm not saying we just want to sail off on our own and take care of this. We want to start a process, much like my remarks at the Ed Davis Ball were. It's about dialogue and communication and working toward a common goal.
Talking about our neighbors, well, we have Charlie's the magistrate over that neighborhood. You got 2 more in the city, and that will be some of those kids that will be coming to that center. So I don't know whether it would be appropriate or not, but we might discuss a little bit with the magistrates and judge.
It's certainly possible. Yeah, historically, the city took care of Ed Davis, and the county took care of the county park, and we took care of the swimming pool, and the county took care of certain things. But those aren't as clear today as they used to be. And I think there's discussion that can take place. And I think as we make some improvements, we make the need for the other improvements more obvious. Just some thoughts that we had. Ronnie, again, I appreciate your persistence, and I come back from lunch and Ronnie be sitting in the hallway waiting on me, and we never had an appointment, but we sure did meet a lot.
Well, I'll tell you another one that's very persistent about Ed Davis is Bias Tilford.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's, I guarantee he's talked to every council member here about something that needs to be done. And you've mentioned the bathrooms, the lighting. So, thanks, Bias.
If it wasn't for Mr. and Mrs. Tilford, and I say Mr. Tilford in particular, because he was on the council when Ed Davis was built, and if it wasn't for him, it probably wouldn't have been built. So, Bias and many other people have done a lot for our community as a whole. So,
He's got his heart in the right spot.
yep, absolutely.
Now, Ms. Tilford set aside $200,000 from the council before he was on there. I
Yeah,
think I seconded that
well,
motion.
Now, he just picked up where she left off. That's what it was.
Now, I'll give y'all a history lesson about Miss Tilford. There was a point in time when the city paved the street in front of your house. City paid 60% of it. Property owner paid 40%. So when we paved streets, people got a bill. If you lived on a corner and we paved both streets,
You got two bills.
you got two bills.
Yeah.
My mother used
Barbara Ann Tilford made the motion for the city to start paying 100% of the streets being.
Bias wasn't paying his bill, was he? Where you Bias?
Unbelievable.
So,
What was it, 60 by the city and 40 by the citizens?
Sort of like on the sidewalk deal in a sense.
so people sometimes were happy you were paving their street and sometimes they weren't. We were gonna get in their pocket. But Ms. Tilford made the motion to end that practice.
Smart move, I think.
Yeah, that was, she'd be proud of that one for a long time.
Yes.
So what we will do is, I'll continue to work with Mark Reed from Hamilton and Hinkle on the paving cost and timeline and what we can get done this fall. Sherry is already working on some general cost estimates for me on some of the stuff inside the building. I've been reminded by several people that Ed Davis Inc. has a lot of talent among that community group, and there may be folks who want to donate labor, who want to donate a skilled trade, and we'd be receptive to that too, so that we make this a collaborative effort. And then I think we'll all need to learn more about running an after-school program.
Yeah.
And Ed is doing that background work now. I know he's already met with state officials once, and he's doing the preliminary work now so that we can bring you all back more facts.
Maybe we could pick Ruby's brain.
Oh, wouldn't dare do this without Ruby.
It's pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting stuff. So, Bias, thank each of you for being here, and we've got lots of stuff to work on.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Couple of other things, and I'll go through these a lot quicker than I did that one, I promise.
That one there is very good though,
Yeah,
so we don't know what you're coming up with
All
now.
of your comments are interesting. Mayor.
All
We
right.
appreciate this.
Thank you, Ronnie. One thing I want to draw your attention to, we had a lot of guests at the front of the meeting, and I asked you quickly about acknowledging receipt of the check register.
Yes.
But I wanted to draw your attention to a specific check in the check register, and that is a check to the city of Richmond in the amount of $15,000 and a few dollars.
Okay.
$15,099
14.
and 14 cents.
Yep.
That is what we paid the city of Richmond to get one of their officers out of their contract with Richmond so they could go to work for us. Where we make officers sign pledges to stay with us for a certain period of time, or we ask them to reimburse us for our training costs. Most cities have those same provisions. This officer had only been with Richmond, I think, just over a year of a 3-year contract. And Chief Bossy and I talked long and hard and swallowed hard before we agreed to pay this contract out to get a very well-trained, qualified officer. we just did the math. For us to hire an officer, wait for them to get into the training academy, to go through the training academy, and then get them ready to go on the street, we have far more invested in them than $15,000.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, we decided it was worth our money to make that investment. But we don't do that routinely, and I wanted to draw your attention to that on the check register.
Mayor, I'm glad you explained that, because it's an investment. The way you explain it to us anyway, it's an investment. But if somebody just heard that we paid $15,000 on the street to buy somebody's contract out, that may not sound quite so
Right.
favorable. But I understand totally what you're
Yeah.
saying, and I appreciate you going into the extra detail.
Yes, sir. We had a really good 3-hour, 4-hour meeting with our solid waste consultants late last week.
About 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours. Millie joined us for the whole meeting, and Polly got here to meet with me for a meeting I was supposed to have, and she ended up joining the meeting because it went real long. We got a lot of information from the consultants, and we were able to give them feedback on a lot of what they brought us. They had developed some tables that they use in other municipalities, and they had plugged in our expenses, our route information, our equipment, our personnel, and they had run it all through their model. But Stacy was in on the meeting as well, and there were some financial tweaks we wanted to make to their model, some things that we brought to their attention. But they've basically distilled down all of our solid waste collection cost. They've tried to capture all the costs related to solid waste and spread those over a 10-year period. And then look at our various rate structures to see if they are adequate to cover the cost for this operation over a 10-year period. It looks like a very solid mathematical model for the way we can evaluate these things. Again, their premise is that municipalities can do solid waste collection just as efficiently as a private hauler. And in fact, they're going to have a series of recommendations for us to become even more efficient. But they thought we had a pretty good basic setup. Some of the survey numbers that really pleased me, there were 85% of our citizens who expressed satisfaction with the solid waste collection. We sometimes hear from the negatives, we don't always hear from the positives.
Sure.
But there was really good data from both the mailed surveys, which are a random survey, and then we compared those results with the online results that we looked for. The online results aren't as scientific because people could vote more than once. They could go to a different computer, they could load it up. But in most cases, the random sample matched what the online sample was.
Good.
We found that our rates are pretty much in line. So we're not going to shock you with anything there. We did learn that there are some lines of business that we're losing a lot of money on. And we went through a matrix of what a number of our peer cities offer in terms of service,
Right.
and some of the specific lines of service in solid waste collection that most cities have gotten out of. And one of those is a category that we'll need to evaluate getting out of. And that's going to be business small dumpsters. We may be better off to let the free market handle those because we're losing our shirt on them. Other rates appear to be in pretty good shape. We're also going to learn what I learned from this meeting is I think we have got a clear path to the point of redefining how we do some things with residential collection and being able to offer curbside recycling to every resident in Georgetown.
Bam. Yes. Bingo.
What we wanted to hear.
There will be front-end startup cost that they're working back into their model, and how we do that. But I am very encouraged by what we've heard, and the way we stack up with other cities, and some timeline that we're working with. Given the feedback that we provided them with, they're going to get us another draft by mid to late November, is their timeline, with a final report, their final written report being ready by mid-December. We have scheduled for them to appear before this city council on January the 23rd to present their findings. By that time, we will have provided you the findings in writing, but we'll have an open session where they can provide all of their stuff on January the 23rd. And then we can begin doing our work. Stacy and I are pretty tickled about the timeline because it gives us an opportunity to incorporate all of this stuff into a new budget cycle, right as we're considering a new budget. And it's going to take us, the consultant process is going to take a little longer than we anticipated, but I think you're going to be pleased with the results and the analysis that you're going to see. Just an update on the Cardome grant, where we've been trying to spend the $100,000 grant to improve the roof at Cardome for the church deal. I mentioned to you all that one of the problems we had is all bidders had to be pre-qualified through the transportation cabinet, even though we were looking for a roofing company. Seems a little counterintuitive, but that's what the state required us to do. So naturally, we got no bids.
It gets better, though.
It gets better. The transportation cabinet now, what we wanted to do since we got no bids is move immediately to negotiations with vendors, and let's just move on with this. The transportation cabinet is going to require us to rebid the job for 14 days and put it on the transportation cabinet's website. We don't think it's going to change a thing. We think we're wasting 2 weeks, but we have to go through their process. If we get a responsive bid, great. If we don't, and we're not anticipating that we will, then we hope for permission to negotiate and get it done.
Good.
To do a $100,000 grant that is subject to prevailing wage is almost not like a grant. You can get very little accomplished by it. Wanted to let the council know something we've been working on for several months, but we did not have a resolution, and we finally have a resolution. The old pool house at Suffaletta Pool that burned down months ago, I guess, last year, when it burned. It turned out that that building was not on the city's insurance policy.
Oops.
The pool was, but the building wasn't.
Building was not. And that required a lot of additional homework.
Right.
Why?
Good question.
Apparently, the Parks and Recreation Department dropped that building from our coverage about 10 years ago. So it was uninsured. They must have done that about the time they closed the pool, is my guess. So the building was not insured when it burned. The other thing that came to our attention while we were evaluating this is that Parks and Recreation has been paying for the property insurance on city-owned assets that the Parks Department manages. The problem with that is Parks and Recreation departments are not legally allowed to own real estate. So how can they insure what they can't own? So what that boils down to is that a significant amount of property that the city owns that we let Parks and Rec manage for us. Parks and Recreation has been paying the property insurance bill for 10 years or longer. County's been paying half of that.
But we've been budgeting them. We've been putting it into their budget, right? They've put it in their line item and
And we paid half and the
we
county
paid
paid
half,
half
the county paid half.
to insure our property.
Yeah, okay.
So we have fixed it for this year.
Were
We-
they doing that for the county too?
No. Unfortunately. So we have, for the current budget year, we have shifted all the property that was previously insured by Parks and Recreation to our property schedule. And we'll receive an additional insurance bill of somewhere around $11,000, right, Stacy?
Annual?
Uh-huh. The question
Oh, my God.
that I've been discussing with the judge for months now is, how do we handle the look back?
Yeah.
Where they've been paying one of our bills for a long period of time. And we're working on that. And I think that we can come to a non-cash transaction.
A what kind?
A non-cash transaction. We've got some things working. Parks and Recreation has asked Kentucky League of Cities to cancel all of the insurance on the buildings that have been moved, all the real property that's been moved to our schedule. So Parks and Recreation will receive a refund probably in the amount of around $32,000. Judge and I agree, and when they receive that refund, the city and the county will each take half of that because we each paid half of that.
Right.
So we're fixed for this year and we're fixed going forward. I'll come back to you with a proposed transaction to address the look back.
So was there double insurance being paid then? Because the city was paying insurance?
City wasn't paying insurance.
We weren't
was
paying
it?
it. We weren't paying for property that we owned that Parks and Rec was managing for us.
But they were. They were. Paying, and the county was paying half of it.
All of our property was on their property roll, but none of the county's property. They had it on their, as they should have, on the county's property roll.
I'm not sure I understand it. I apologize.
Okay,
I think you're thinking like I'm thinking.
The insurance policy is held in the name of the Parks Department.
Right.
So in their name, all of the city's property was there, and that was budgeted and split between the county and the city.
Okay.
Whereas it should have been in the city's
I'm with
name.
you. I'm with you. So the county was paying half of what they should have been paying half of.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're gonna, the judge and I are aware of that, and we've been having conversations about how to handle it, and I'll come back to you with that. We have negotiated a settlement, and I have to give a lot of credit to our insurance agent, David Livingston, who handled these negotiations for us. Even though the building, coverage on the building had been dropped 10 years ago, we got a settlement out of the building for $140,000.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, it took a lot of work. It took a
More than
lot of
good.
negotiation, but we've already collected, we have the check for $140,000. What had to happen is, they calculated 10 years premium and sent Parks and Rec's a bill for the $8,600 to cover 10 years worth of premium on the building. Parks and Recreation paid that premium, then we got a $140,000 check.
Was this insurance with Kentucky League?
Yes.
No other insurance company would have done that.
No.
Except for Kentucky League's, because they would have just said no, and they'd had no right to do it. but because Kentucky League City, just like they're doing tonight, works with cities, that's why they
They're
understood.
here to take care of the
help.
cities, one way or the other.
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
the fact that we got $140,000
Yeah,
is relationships.
yeah, absolutely.
And it was also, there were a lot of hard concepts that had to be discussed here too. You know, they weren't just happy to write a $140,000 check, but they also had it pointed out to them that they also hold the errors and omissions insurance for Parks and Recreation, and they could pay this, or they could pay a $300,000 errors and omissions
Yeah.
policy claim. So we managed to reach a point of mutual understanding about how that, but it did take some pretty pitched negotiations.
The errors and omissions, I guess, would be on the insurance side of things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, either way, KLC was gonna have a claim.
Right, right. So sometimes when one of us files a claim, you know, we have damage to our house and we file a claim, our premiums sometimes go up. Would that be a possibility here with this situation?
David, I think the law of large numbers is probably gonna protect us there. I don't think that'll be, I don't think that's the case. Stacy and I have, we're gonna bring you an emergency need for more than 140,000, probably in the next meeting or two.
Are you, what are you doing with the building? What's your plans to do with the building as it stands now?
It stands right now, I've asked them to look at it because it's just sitting there as a burned out hulk.
Right.
And there's also a little adjacent concrete block building that kids get into, and we think it's a hazard. I've asked them to get some prices on knocking it all down.
Okay.
It shouldn't stand there as a burned
Yeah,
out
somebody
hulk.
had actually come in shop and had asked about it this week, or last week rather, about the building up there, what we're gonna do with them, and I said, I don't know, but we'll find out, so.
Yeah. The fire department has brought us a very well thought out idea about a fire training facility there that would complement what the county has. So we're mowing that idea around. We're also encouraged by that because the fire department's been very successful for training facilities and grants. They may be able to help fund that. We have another situation involving the fire department that's gonna require a pretty large expenditure, and just mentally, Stacy and I have kind of earmarked that 140 as going toward an unbudgeted need that we've become aware of with the fire department. So more to come on that little need to purchase something, but we haven't brought it to the finance committee yet because we're still doing the homework so that we can have something substantive to talk with you about. But it was time for the council to know that we've been doing some real hard negotiating with KLC on this settlement, and we have gotten $140,000.
That's good.
You will be emailed the comprehensive plan goals and objectives, and we anticipate asking you to vote on those at the next meeting. Apparently, the fiscal court and both the other cities have already taken that step. So we'll email it to you, and we'll be ready to hopefully vote on that at our next council meeting. The ethics ordinance has been emailed to you, a draft ethics ordinance. And we anticipate that the Ethics Commission will be here on November the 14th and ask us to answer questions, explain changes to the ordinance, and let us have first reading of a new ethics ordinance. Leaf collection begins November 1st. Probably already getting calls over it.
Out on the street right now.
They're already pushed out there. So we'll start leaf collection on November the 1st, and on Saturday, November the 5th, we will have our first day of giving away the free chips and mulch at the community garden site. We've also, Karen, followed up with the gentleman who inspected the property and have been assured, he's been back to do a follow-up, and we've been assured that there is no violation there. And
There is actually, was sent to me while we were having a council meeting, that there is private dumping, a private truck out there, was out there this afternoon dumping in that, and had trash, I'll show you the picture later, but it had trash in the back of the truck, putting it on.
so it went with it.
With that, so we may have to put a fence around
Gate
it
or something up, yeah.
to keep it from going back in there.
We've actually today talked about a fence and a gate, but if we lock the gate, we have so many people going to the community gardens.
Yes.
Can you put it back where back in the back where maybe where the chippings or something is, put it back there or something. But the guy had a pickup truck, they took a picture of it. They were in the community gardens, took a picture of it, and the guy had a pickup truck that had limbs in it. But then he had all this other debris that was in it too, that he was dumping.
They didn't
right
get a
in.
license plate, did they?
I don't know, we look good. But do we have a no dumping sign out there, don't we? Yeah, I think we do.
So the giveaway will begin on Saturday, November 5th. That's the same day as free dump day. So just take your truck full of trash,
Unload
go
it.
to the landfill and dump
Go
it,
get your chips.
and then slide back around and get you some chips.
The limbs are hiding the license plate.
All
Of
right.
course.
Pretty smooth on that one, wasn't it, huh?
Okay. The last item, and one of the most important, is actually the one that's on your agenda. We've been talking about this $36 million interstate exchange that we're getting ready to have completed, and there's a new road, Kentucky 3552, that will run from this interchange to Champion and Cherry Blossom. It's going to make a huge infrastructure difference for us. And we've worked on this for quite a while, but I thought it important that the council have the opportunity to name the road. And we brought you a resolution tonight for the council to be involved in this. There's a well-worded resolution in your packet, but we would propose that the route known as Kentucky 3552 be known as Lexus Way.
That's good.
It's a good idea.
The company has run it by their legal team, Toyota Motor Sales. I think it reflects our pride in having a Lexus manufacturing plant in our community. And the decision is the local government, so it is yours. And so we bring you this resolution tonight, asking that the road be named Lexus Way.
Motion.
Motion, thank you.
Uh-oh,
Second.
nice.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Under City Attorney, we have a municipal order approving an amendment to the CityWorks contract. Just by way of explanation, this is being presented as an amendment to an existing contract. When we bought the asset management module of CityWorks, we included in that bid the
PLL, permits, licensing, and land.
permits, licensing, and land module, which will allow us to try, for example, to tie together all of the revenue commission work with the county clerk's office, with the building inspection office, and et cetera, et cetera. That original bid actually had these modules included and indicated that we may take advantage of those modules at a later date. The cost of this one is just in excess of $75,000. We have that budgeted. That cost will be shared with a number of different agencies, some city, some interlocal agencies. That'll make this work. We did step up one notch to where we bought the enterprise version of this module, and what that lets us do is have unlimited number of users. So we don't have to quibble over is there one license in a particular office, or can there be three? We have the enterprise version, and we're able to do that. So, with that explanation, would you like to read that, Ms. Ward, please?
An order approving an amendment to the contract with Aztec Systems LLC for the implementation of CityWorks Server PLL, purchase of an enterprise license and professional services to train users, and authorizing the mayor to sign all documents. Whereas the city of Georgetown currently contracts with Aztec Systems for the CityWorks asset management system software to track infrastructure and business assets citywide, and whereas Aztec also offers CityWorks Server PLL as complementary software solution to manage permits, projects, inspections, and other activities related to permitting, planning, and engineering review, and where Server PLL will be used by Public Works, Code Enforcement, Planning and Zoning, Georgetown Fire, Georgetown City Clerk, Building Inspection, Electrical Inspection, Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission, private utility companies, the United Way of the Bluegrass, and others, and whereas the cost of implementing Server PLL, purchasing an enterprise unlimited users license for both AMS and PLL, and training users is $75,766, with such cost to be allocated among the various departments, and whereas the funds for this purchase are included in the approved 2016-2017 budget. Now therefore, it is hereby ordered by the Georgetown City Council that the attached amendment to the contract with Aztec Systems LLC for implementing Server PLL, purchasing the enterprise license for both AMS and PLL, and training users in the amount of $75,766 is hereby approved, and the mayor is authorized to sign all relevant documents.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion's been made.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any questions for Andrew on this topic? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ms. Stacy, financial quarterly report.
Good evening. Just wanted to give you our quarterly update. I did give you the longer, detailed, line-by-line expense and revenue document. I'm not going to be going over that tonight. If you have any questions, you can let me know. But wanted to obviously update you on our major revenue streams. So first, we'll look at the payroll tax collections. And this has been updated through the first quarter. So as you can see, through the month of September, we have collected $2,446,841 in employee withholding or payroll taxes, and we budgeted $9.8 million, so we're at about 25% of our budget through the first quarter. Pretty much right on track.
Right.
And as you can see, what I've done and what I started doing last year, down below the percentages and comparisons to prior years, you can see that I do show you for July, August, and September the amounts that were remitted or given back to Toyota for the incentive program, which for the first 3 months of the year was a total of $712,914. So that helps you see the comparison of what the revenue would have been if it had not been for the incentive. And just as a note, that would have been $3,159,755 if you had had the incentive added back in. So we're doing good. We're right at, like I said, 25% of our budget, which for one quarter in is exactly where we should be. So we are on target with that. So any questions on payroll taxes?
No, that's good.
Okay. The net profit, this one's always a little more complicated. I have a million notes on my page. It's so hard to compare this from year to year. But the good thing is it's a little more comparable because I always drop a year when I update this for the new year. It's a 5-year comparison. So 2012 dropped off, which means we start with 2013. That was the first year we started getting net profits checks back from Toyota. So finally, these 5 years are a little more comparable. But you can see fiscal year 2016, our net profits were over $6.6 million. Wow. Couple of numbers that have to be backed out of that. This is where I do my hand notes on my page. $1,768,000 and change was our one-time payment from Toyota for the amended 2011 return. $2,445,000 of that was Toyota's estimated payments for their fiscal year ending March 31st, 2016. We will not know what the actual tax due is on that year until January, because as usual, they've extended, the return would have been due in July, extended till January. Also, one thing that is not noted in the number you see, but will be added, I had to call the Revenue Commission today and get a draft copy of their audit report, but there's always a number in their audit report that reduces our revenue, and it's called overpayments on net profits. So there is $513,704 that will be shown in the Revenue Commission's audit report of overpayments. So people who filed returns and literally they've overpaid us for their estimates, and they'll take those credits on future returns. So that 6.6 million will be reduced to around 6.1 million once that is official in their audit and I make that adjustment. With all of those numbers backed out, I try to get to a true net profits without Toyota. So for 2016, it would have been around $1,941,000 of net profits exclusive of Toyota. And I always think that's important for us to see. We want to try to gauge how the rest of the economy is doing as well. So I know I focused a lot on 16, but I wanted us to look at those final numbers and see where they were since they were updated since the last time I was here. So for fiscal year 2017, we're at $1,628,575 out of a $2.8 million budget. Two things to note about those numbers. Of the $1,628,575, $1.5 million of that is the first two estimated payments from Toyota. So that is really only about $128,575 from other entities. Also, of the $2.8 million budget, we were estimating around $1 million of that as Toyota revenue, leaving about $1.8 million from other entities. Comparing that to 2016, backing out all the Toyota numbers again, at fiscal year 16, we were at about $177,700 from other entities. But again, it all has to do with the timing of when they file their returns. So I try to drill those down so you have a true first quarter comparison. Approximately $128,575 first quarter this year, approximately $177,698 for the first quarter last year for entities other than Toyota. But again, that's encouraging that if we collected approximately 1.9 from other entities last year, and we've budgeted about 1.8 for those. So we're on track. Insurance premium taxes. The 2016 numbers were not complete when I was here in July because of how late they filed their returns. So you can see that we ended last year with approximately $2.4 million once all of the July and August revenues were thrown back. And we have budgeted $2.3 million for this year. So as long as our collections trend the same as last year, then we've budgeted very comfortably. And I did go ahead and throw in that so far this month we've collected $61,417 for the first quarter, but they have another week before their returns are due, and a lot of those get mailed on the 31st. So that's why we always have incomplete numbers until usually a month or so after. Property tax collections. Not a lot to look at there. We've collected $9,450 so far this year, which is about 1% of our budget. That's about where we are at this time every year. So obviously the tax season is upon us, and we'll start to see that money roll in the next quarter. And finally, the alcoholic beverage regulatory fees. Again, the 2016 numbers were not complete the last time I was here in July due to the timing of the returns. You can see that with the final quarter in 2016, we collected $883,130, which was actually down about $29,000 from fiscal year 15. So I'm not sure why, but you can kind of look at each quarter and see it did trend down in 3 out of the 4 quarters. So I'm not sure what happened there. So we budgeted $900,000 this year, so we'll have to see if it picks back up for how that goes. But I'm not sure if there's any particular trends that are causing that, but people didn't drink as much last year as they did the year before.
Are any of those fees, or any of it is fees?
This is strictly fees.
Okay.
The licenses and the fines are budgeted in a
Okay.
separate account, so this is strictly the regulatory fees. So that is definitely due to the actual purchase. Any questions about any of these revenue sources?
Y'all need to be drinking more.
And our auditors will be here next month, and so hopefully we'll have some more updates on just how everything ended the year and as we get ready to go into our budget year. So we'll have concrete numbers to start our budget off with. And
Good.
thank you.
Any other questions for Stacey? Thank you, ma'am. Let's see, we have, under the fire department, the municipal order approving items for surplus. Do these need any explanation, Eric? Are they pretty straightforward?
The last engine that we purchased, we did some upgrades to it, one of which was the roll-up doors. We upgraded those to a better quality and also had them painted, so. The department out of West Virginia's approached us wanting to buy the ones that were originally on the truck in the amount of $2,500. We just ask that you allow us to move forward with that transaction.
You could probably use the space. Is there a motion? Thank you. Motion's been made.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works also has some items for surplus, and that is in your packet. Just pretty well stuff we've worn out and used up. Just wanted to declare it surplus, and we'll dispose of it either through online or
Motion, Mayor.
motion's been made.
A second.
Second, Ms. Erdley. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And unless I've missed one, that completes the agenda except for council comments. So, Millie, could we start with you?
All I wanted to mention was how important it's been to me to sit in all the conference calls that we've had with the consultants concerning the solid waste. And we've had two really good, long, productive work meetings with them. And probably for 2 years now, I've talked about curbside recycling since, I talked about it before I became a city council member. And I'm hoping that it's all gonna come to fruition, and I think it'll be beneficial to the citizens of Georgetown. So, that's all.
Thank you. Molly?
Nothing.
Yeah. Marvin?
I had a lady come up to me today at the store, and she showed me a picture of a dumpster sitting down here by the creek where the bridge is on the left-hand side.
Mhm.
There's a dumpster that's there, and the garbage is going into the creek. We need to look at that, okay? You can't see the dumpster for all the trees and stuff, but you can see the trash falling out of
Where
it.
is this again?
Where's the, by the Rock House?
It's on the left-hand side.
On the-
Is that Gifford's property there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right up against, she was over in the Japanese garden and seen it across the creek.
Okay.
Okay, and I told her I'd bring it up tonight, so.
Okay.
I tried to drive by there this afternoon, you can't really see it unless you actually walk over in that area and look around, so. But it's a
It's
dumpster.
on the left side
Yeah,
of
it's a green
25
dumpster.
going out.
It's a green dumpster, and it's,
Left side going out. Yeah.
yeah, on the left side. You probably need to go over to the Japanese garden, just walk around the creek and you'll see it, she said.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Marvin?
No, sir.
David?
No, just some of the intersections, I think, on Cherry Blossom and some of the main roads that connect to it. Gravel.
Everybody knew what he's talking about.
You have to say what?
Tracy said,
Rock.
way to go, Tracy.
You know,
He'll be Val.
Help me out, I need it.
And I'll remind Robert.
That's all right.
Mark,
Pretty bad.
you're good? Chuck?
Yeah.
Connie?
I just wanted to let you guys know that, excuse me, in traffic committee, we've been talking about the street lights. And one of the traffic committee, Nick Lodell and I, we're gonna go around and we're gonna try to get some places known. So what I'm gonna ask is if you all got anything, would you email me? We're gonna get together one day next week. I'm gonna go on a ride along with him. And we're gonna put some of those things down and we're gonna try to approach KU and see if we can't get us some lighting.
I've got a list that Mark provided some time ago that
We'll
is
take
still
it.
on my desk. And I'll make sure that gets turned in, Mark.
We were gonna do that.
In the
So if you'll
evening.
do that, that's our goal. We're gonna start next week.
That's good.
We're gonna see if we can get you some lighting.
Yeah, Mark's probably giving me the best list on street light needs.
Take it, Mark. We're gonna work on it, right, Chuck?
One of the locations that I talked about last meeting, I drove in, there's a street light there now, so.
Oh, there you go.
So y'all do good work, right?
Wow. So just so you know that, just FYI. That's all.
Thanks. Karen?
Had two things. I had a customer in the shop that wanted to know about painting the T's and the L's down on Main Street and around. Said T's and our L's were kind of faded off and couldn't tell where to park. So I told him I'd bring that to your attention to paint back our T's and our L's.
The T's and L's.
That's where you park the
Parallel lines.
Oh,
Oh, the
lines.
T's and the
Ah,
L's.
the
Thank you.
T's. Thank you for clearing that up.
I had no clue.
I'm trying to find a sign that has both T's and L's in
We're
it.
delineating the parking spaces,
Yeah.
the T's and the L's.
T's
I
and the L's
got
that park
it.
the parking spots, yes. They need to be repainted. And then I was helping out at Elkhorn Green, the community, with a project out there, and that road that goes into Elkhorn Green, I don't remember if it's on our paving or not, but it's horrible.
It's horrible. I drive back through there.
Huge
It's so bad.
potholes, one
Massive.
right after the
Yeah.
other back in there.
Ask about coming down Highland.
So it's the main entrance that goes into Elkhorn
It's
Green.
Elkhorn Green
But they
Place.
didn't get
Yeah,
right
it's
down
awful.
next to the light. It's
Absolutely
terrible.
awful.
Yeah, my son just moved out of there, so I've been in and out a bunch. and
So, I mean, there's potholes, so if they could be at least patched, but it needs to be seriously taken a look at. But anyway,
And that's the main entrance.
it is. The rest of it's not that bad, but that one's terrible.
Okay,
Can I mention one more for you?
Yes,
Since
sir.
you mentioned patching, coming down Highland, right before you get to the red light, they patched 3 or 4 spots up, but they never did get right in that one area right there. It's really rough. Right
Okay.
before you get to the red light on Highland.
All right,
Okay.
we will take a look and see.
Court, not Avenue, right? Court. There's two outlets.
No, it's.
No, right when you turn
right
up
when
off
you turn off
Broadway.
Broadway.
Broadway, that's Highland Court.
Yeah.
I'm next to Highland Avenue.
Okay.
Okay, and my comment was, this is our last council meeting before the general election. And I just want to wish each of the council members the best of luck on November the 8th.
Thank you.
I think each of you have served admirably, and wish you the best of luck on the election.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that said, we'll stand adjourned.
I would be happy, happy, happy.
David,
Yeah.
did you get a picture? Yeah.
But I'd really like to get her something for Halloween. Thank you.